Ideally, very tight streets should be one-way streets, like this one where I'm driving now, but it's not always the case. For a variety of reasons, in some places, some very tight streets are two-way streets. However, there's a good chance that if you see a tight street, it'll be a one-way. So if you want to take it, the first thing you should do is to scan for traffic signs. In some streets, you'll have this sign, which means access forbidden, and it'll be placed perpendicular to the street. It could also be a panel with wrong way written on it, or both panels on the same post. In some other streets, you'll have a panel like this one, which means it's a one-way street and it will be placed parallel to the street. So you can enter the street, but only if you go in the direction indicated by the arrow on the panel. Access forbidden can be used in a variety of different situations, but in a lot of places, it's the panel used to indicate one-way streets. You cannot go in that direction. Just think of this as some angry dude with a traffic sign head that really doesn't want you to go there. Basically, these are two different ways of establishing the direction of traffic in only one direction. The one-way panel will be on both ends of the street. The access forbidden one will only be on the end that you cannot access, either on only one side or both. Tight two-way streets that are short and straight aren't really an issue because you can see at the other end. But in long or curvy streets, looking far and anticipating is very important, as it always is when driving in general, but in this case, to stay as centered as possible, and also to see people from far and to spot places in advance where you can move if you're the one who needs to yield. You'll have to analyze whoever has room to let the other pass. On this bridge, the other guy is still far, but still, he's the one closest to the bridge. I see that he has some room here to pass me, so I move to my right and I wait. Now this guy's arriving, so he'll have to do the same and wait for me. Here this guy has some room on this side to move and I don't. So now he's the one that has to move there and yield to me. There's no other option on these kinds of streets but to stop and yield to each other depending on who's closest to a spot where they can move. Like I said in my previous video, you can fold your mirror if you feel it's too tight. Basically, if you have foldable mirrors, fold them whenever possible when it's tight. Do it also when you park your own vehicle. And like I also said in my previous video, when passing between vehicles, scan for signs that somebody could come out of them. Lights on, like brake lights, reverse lights, which are white lights in the back that light up when you put in reverse, people inside the vehicles, position of the front wheels, are they turned towards the street, movement close to stopped active vehicles, and scan the sidewalks and surrounding areas from afar for signs that somebody could pop out between parked vehicles at any time. Just a side note, that's the reason why in a lot of places you cannot park or stop next to schools during school hours, especially elementary schools. This space needs to be clear so that people coming out from there can see you and you can see them. If there were parked vehicles here, a kid could pop out between two vehicles and you wouldn't see them. The same applies to some parks during active park hours, especially parks with activities for kids. Always be on the lookout when approaching intersections where people could pop out of. Same thing with any spot where that could happen. Keep an eye on those spots until you've passed them. Like in all tight spaces, you have very little time to react and very little room to move, and people coming out of them also have very little visibility, so always be on the radar. In big cities, in most cases, two-way streets are wide enough for even two large vehicles to pass at the same time. But in some towns or villages, that might not be the case, especially in some older countries where some of those streets were built a long time ago for horses and horse carriages, and houses were already built around them before the invention of the automobile, so it's not possible to widen them today. But even in cities, there are tight two-way streets. So if it's tight but there's still room for both vehicles, make sure that you slow down as much as needed and be ready to brake at all times. If there's no room for both, anticipate and look for spots where you can move to yield. In the next video, I'll talk about distances in front, street mirrors, and using your horn as a communication device. So stay tuned, be safe, and thanks for watching.